Surprise! We're here with a last minute episode. Welcome to 21st Century Saints, our podcast and live stream series for people who are interested in Mormonism and the whole world that entails. I'm your host, Jane Christie, for this episode, and this is my co-host, Sara Delaney. Do you want to say hey?
Hey everyone, good to be here. This is a bit last minute, an episode we discussed at the witching hour and just knew that we needed to talk. We needed to talk with each other and we needed to talk with you guys.
I feel like we could have called this episode our witching hour talk. Sara and I will frequently stay up far too late, irresponsibly late, having conversations and getting really deep and meaningful. And I feel like this is almost sort of inviting our audience into one of those conversations. So I'm in my bed. Sara is in her comfy chair, blanket at the ready. Yeah, what else were we debating calling this episode? We had a few thoughts.
Beginning of the end.
Beginning of the end.
Screw the world.
Screw the world. Now, I have to say, I was very tempted.
That was the temptation. That did sit a little bit comfortably. That did.
Right. I mean, for the most
we did debate a very, very long title. Will the LDS leadership love this or hate it?
Well, maybe. Good chance they're going to love it.
I think they're going to love this. I genuinely think they're going to love this.
They're going to be thrilled to pieces.
They are.
So, for the people who've been able to last minute join us live, like I say, we gave no notice for tonight. This was kind of impromptu. We only decided sort of last night that we were going to do this because there's a few things that we wanted to talk about. And in essence, 21st Century Saints are taking a podcasting break. Normally, we've done things like sort of season breaks before. This is going to be more of an extended break. We're going to talk about what that means if we're definitely returning. We're going to dive into what has caused us to make this decision. Have a look at my rash. Okay, this is my OCD rash that will feature in part of this this story. But yeah, we wanted to tell you all a little bit about what's happening here. So we cancelled. We have some really great guests lined up to come and speak with us, and the plan was that was going to happen over the next sort of few weeks. We have topics to discuss years ahead. I mean, there's so many things we want to dive into. But yeah, Sara, what brought us here? Do you want to share what you're thinking?
Gosh, isn't that a long story, isn't it? What brought us here? I think what got us to the point of deciding we needed an extended break, that may be a forever break. It may not be. It may be a short break. But I think what got us here is recognizing the huge benefits of decluttering. And this is how this whole conversation came about. We were talking about the need to declutter. And sometimes that decluttering is about de-junking your physical space, getting rid of stuff you no longer need, stuff that no longer serves a useful purpose, stuff that no longer brings you joy or happiness, stuff you can do without. And then we started talking about how much we need that around our spiritual selves, and how I gave the example to Jane that my head is so full that I genuinely don't feel that there's a fraction of space left in my head for anything else at all. Mm-hmm. And we spoke about how sometimes we need to start emptying stuff out, and we talked about the parable of new wine in old wineskins, and that
that's quote by David Hasselhoff. Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jesus had something to do with this as well, Jane. But David Hasselhoff, if you want. But I think Jesus did have a bit to do with this. But this old wine, if you leave the old wine in a wineskin and then you add new wine to it, the old wine is going to spoil the new wine. And I think sometimes we have ended up with so much stuff in our lives.
Yeah, just stuff. Yes.
Stuff, emotional stuff, physical stuff, psychological stuff, all kinds of stuff that our heads, our minds, our lives are so full that there's no room for anything else to grow and to flourish. And it becomes really difficult to untangle the valuable and the stuff that is no longer valuable. And that's how we got to here. And we talked about lots of things. We talked about gardening, about wineskins, about silencing, about dejunking.
Say the gardening thing, because that was a mind-blowing one for me, and there's a time when I want to bring that in. I think you guys are going to really enjoy this story. But in essence, we have a lot going on. I think it's really important, first of all, to make clear what our vision is, what our plan is for safeguarding, because we didn't go into this space knowing that we could drop at any time we felt like. We came into this space because we are here and committed to it, and this is going to be a long slog. Now, the work of safeguarding that we've been doing in the background, there's a lot. It is really, really intense, and that has involved having conversations with victims to understand their experiences, to signpost them to organisations and places that will be able to offer them real support. We're getting a sense of what the picture is that we have to responsibly report on, to help the church to do better, to help other organisations learn how the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, when things come up, support systems have to be put in place. So when we recognise there are clusters of abuse in a particular area, it's really important that organisations are prepared for what those consequences might look like, and that they have resources in place. So we're doing that. We're presenting to conferences. We're having so many conversations in the background, and it's keeping us very busy. And it's an important work, and one that we are conscious of wanting to be responsible about. Sarah?
I think it's really important that we stress here that we're taking a break from podcasting. We're taking a break from a lot of things in our lives so that we can focus on some of the priorities for us personally, and some of those priorities around health and family. But it's also really important to stress that safeguarding pieces of work that we are committed to, people that we are currently working with or supporting, or work that we are in the progress of doing, none of this changes. Nothing we say tonight changes any of that. So just if anybody is listening and thinking, hang on a minute, what about this? We're still doing it. We're not, we haven't, we're not packing up on that. We're really not. We're not.
And I think in addition to that, we were joking there about the church itself may love this episode. So yeah, I guess the thing to break the church's heart with is, we're not done. We're still working in this space. We might not be podcasting about it for a few months, but this is where we are. Now, the other important thing to acknowledge, and it's just so that our audience are very clear on what this looks like, because you have driven this safeguarding work. Our audience have been made up of people who have survived, made up of people who have supported financially, and who've given a lot of their time and just been there to support with messages and care and in the chat and all of these types of things, signed our petitions. So when we're involved with any individual who comes to us who's reported a case, we're always very clear that we are not a support service, that we are limited. I'm not a qualified counsellor. Sara has incredible expertise in a professional capacity, sort of from her job for working with vulnerable groups. But we have limitations that mean the very first thing we need to do is to make sure any individual is receiving the right care and support, medically, therapeutically, and all of these types of things. And our role is to signpost to that where we can. And also, if the person is willing to share some context and give us some sort of information about what their experience has involved, where that experience took place, and the impact on their lives or their families' lives, then we're able to collate that information and to be able to build a picture of what abuse looks like in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the United Kingdom. And we've used that information. We've shared that information. We continue to share that information. There are organisations who are particularly looking for some of the statistics, some of the generalized case information that we have been permitted to share. So there's lots of stuff that's happening. But so we were never designed to be a support organization. So that's not going to change. We were always sort of here to sort of shine a light on abuse, to be able to signpost, and to be able to make sure that we can gather as much information as possible and extrapolate information from that.
Absolutely. And I think equally to shine a light where there has been really good responses from the church, because that's equally as important, where the church have done a really good job and where they're doing well and where they're taking things seriously and they're making a real effort and they're responding, then we want to make sure we're shining a light on that as well.
Because we want to say more of this, please. And because the organisation, the church, hey, church, lawyers, leaders, you should be doing this. This is your job. We are trying to give you the tools to learn how to do that and to not be afraid to do that. It's a really helpful process. It's helpful for everyone involved, but frightening. So so we've been here. We will continue to do that work. It will happen in a boundaried way. So we are able to give what we can give without it becoming so intense that we are sort of struggling to cope. We're struggling to sort of fit life around this in many ways. Now, that's safeguarding. The podcast more generally. We were here to have conversations about the lived experience of members and those adjacent to Latter-day Saints, specifically in the UK, but because we're a global church and because it's very often US centred, we wanted to talk about what that looks like around the world, but with a real British focus. There are so many conversations we still want to have. There are so many conversations that that we're having in the witching hour. This is going to become one of those conversations. But like Sara said, like you said, Sara, there are so many voices right now. There are so many. Oh, how would you describe it?
I think maybe I'm just going to talk about me for a little bit because I like talking about me. It's all about me. It's all about me, and I like talking about me.
Right.
So for me, I think there's a sense of me looking for the things that I want to hold on to in my life, the things that are important, the things that I value the most, the things that I want to give precedence to in my life, the things that need to take priority, need to be there. And a lot of that is about what spiritual things need to be there for me. What are my spiritual beliefs? What do I want to hold on to? What do I want to take and hold on to and use in my everyday life? What do I want to reject forever because it no longer serves a useful purpose and is not good for me? And how do I work out what those are? And one of the struggles that has been there for me in working out what I want to hold on to and what I want to let go of and how I want to move forward with whatever faith and spiritual community way, however that looks. One of the challenges that's been there for me has been there's so many voices with so many opinions and so many attitudes, from angry, hating ex-Mormons to proactive, orthodox, desperately wanting everybody to be doing things the way they do it because they think it's the only possible right way on the face of this earth, and everything in between. And sometimes those voices are like, duh, 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 and there's like hundreds of them hitting all at the same time. And it can be really hard to silence those voices and to hear what it is that you need to listen and hear.
Yeah. And we're talking about, it's the cliches of angry ex-Mormons, angry Mormons. because it becomes so extreme and so polarized, all
Mm.
of these voices. It's almost, in many ways, I think we're experiencing what the LDS Church always said, like, all of these ex-Mormons are so angry. And yes, I am angry too. This is completely normal.
Yeah.
Balanced with people who are really angry in the church because something's not happening right. People who are not in this space at all but have some kind of investment in it. People who just think the whole thing is bloody nonsense, and they're not wrong, but also these are high stakes. And then sort of you see, just as simple as a jokey, funny meme will come up, and it's really jarring because we've been in a space of intense, support, frustration, our own heartbreaks, and now you want me to laugh? How am I supposed to even laugh? It's just
Mm.
a permanent emotional roller coaster, I think, and spiritual roller coaster.
Yeah, and if you ask a question,
Mm,
there's you ask a question, and one question leads to another 500 questions.
yeah. Do you know what? I'm actually really thankful because we have this wonderful comment. One of our Mary, who's been in the chat very, very often, and we really appreciate you, Mary. Your contributions are always so welcome. And so I hope that this is sort of in the spirit of I hope you understand the spirit with which we say this, but this is like a perfect example. So we'll go to the chat, and the chat is always so good. People's opinions, and they're sharing their experiences and their vulnerabilities. And then in the chat, we can read, right, the Daybell case is about to, that verdict's about to be released, and so we go to this place mentally where we're thinking, oh right, yes, the day. And I think that's happening with literally every aspect of. So we're thinking about our own faith journey. We're thinking about whatever sort of family needs we have, whatever physical, emotional needs we have. Then we're thinking about the Mormon media, what's the latest story. Then we have safeguarding cases. Then we have a podcast discussion to have. Then we have events that are happening, and it's just, and our mind is ping ponging back between all of those constantly. And and every time it hits off something, I can we're conscious of it, that this doesn't feel fun. Podcasting, having these conversations, has always been fun, enlarging, stimulating. The thing that I didn't ever get to feel before, to be able to have people's opinions, and what is it that you're experiencing? That's the thing that I think is really important. And how are you experiencing it? How are you getting to have this fantastic experience? And this is a possibility. That's wonderful. Sharing people's pains and their journeys and their joys. It's such an honor to be able to do this. But I think, in light of the fact that I've made this huge decision to leave the church, I am still trying to get my head around, what kind of me am I now? Because I've been told who I am, I've been told who my values are, and I know what the answer, I know what I would say to anyone else, but I'm trying to find my compass. And I think while I'm in that space of trying to learn and know, am I angry at the church? Am I angry at me? Am I angry at the world? Am I angry at other people? Am I angry at injustice? I'm definitely angry. Then why am I yelling at my husband? And it's showing me that there's a lack of balance there. There's something that I am missing, that I need to readjust. And so I feel like what's really needed is a break, is to breathe, is just to have some time to think about why we're here and what we're doing here and what that will look like. But even before I can think about here, I have to think about me, because it's all about me. right?
Jane, and I think it is all about you because
Yeah,
you're the queen of podcasting, so it is all about you, and it should all be about you.
it's all about us.
So, what's this? You're almost in this liminal space at the moment where you've left the LDS church, you are about to join with a faith community that has had your heart for a long time, and that's a step that you're kind of exploring, looking at, things are happening for you. What's this liminal in between space like for you at the
Oh, I love
moment?
that. I love that. Um, so the way I would describe how I often make really hard decisions is I'm very conscious. So I can make a decision very, very quickly. Because I absolutely am clear that there isn't another choice, that this is absolutely what I'm doing and I'm committing to it. So I can be impulsive. But when you've been in a space like this for a really long time, I think you're sort of almost, yeah, I've been at a crossroads, or I've been on a fence for such a long time. We've been always very clear that, if you're on a fence, you're going to fall one way or the other. It's not designed for staying there forever, nor is a crossroads. So when I think that that liminal space is, where does that take me next? What does that look like? And is it okay if I just take a breath and enjoy the feeling of, or not, just sit in the feeling of, oh, okay, this hurts. This is uncomfortable. So I was using the example during our witching hour chat last night of when I'm having some physio on my back, and you're finding, the physio is finding the sore spot and pushing into it, and it really, really hurts. And as they sit with it, just at the bit where it's sore, culpable and uncomfortable, but not too uncomfortable that it's going to actually really hurt you, it's just a bit of pain. If you breathe into that, that pain just gradually decreases. But the pain is still there, the pressure is still there. And then as we're sort of moving my body, oh, okay, that now that pain has been removed, and okay, an effect happened. And then he may need to do that again another few times. Right, let's do this again. Let's apply the pressure and move your joint in this way. But there is a pressure and there's a pain. And I think at the moment I need to breathe and find out, does this hurt? Is this sore? Is this what it is? Maybe I feel free. Maybe I feel lots of different things at the same time, but I don't know. And I don't like that sense of, I can't live with a lack of identity. I think that work is always going to have to come first. Um, what I would say, so I think this is really important. One of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation too was to let the audience know, because I know that you're really clear, Sarah. So I have a baptism scheduled with Community of Christ, and we've mentioned this before because we've been hanging out with Community of Christ for like a million years. They're wonderful, and there's no pressure. They've just always been a spiritual home when we've needed it, but certainly when I've needed it. Being very isolated, seeing people who have travelled across the world or across a country just to minister to me, just for a half-hour conversation, kills me that someone is willing to do that for me, and I can't emphasize that enough. But just just those relationships, and someone expecting nothing. And as we were sort of talking about, I don't feel a need for baptism. I don't feel that that's something. I'm certainly not joining a new religion. Absolutely not. That's the last thing I want. What I'm going to get to experience is, I believe, closer to what I thought baptism would be about. That when Jesus is being baptized, he has left the crowd, how other people are doing church, how other people are doing worship and the sacredness of that, that's happening somewhere else. There's a higher church experience that's happening over there. Here are people who are in the water, who are surrounded by the earth, who are having a community experience. And shouldn't Jesus be over there worshiping? No, he's out in the wilderness with the other wanderers, the other seekers and searchers. And I feel like that's the experience that I want. Baptism as a protest, baptism as a experience of the not being baptized into a religion, having this sort of experience that's very much about community and connection and the earth and womanhood. Um, I'm aware that I'm talking about, but I think
It's about the sense of letting go and taking hold of in the same event for you.
well, again, this is reminding me of the conversation that we'd had the other week. So we've been taught to hold to the iron rod, but then we compared that with the woman who, with the issue of blood, who was reaching out to hold the garment. Jesus is the hem of Jesus's
Right.
garment,
And
and
iron rods are cold and hard and unbending and unflexible, and they're not comfortable to lean on if you're in pain and need support. The hem of clothing is soft, it's tangible, you can grasp it in your hand, you can wrap it around you, you can pull it to you, you can
and it would
lean
have
into
been
it.
made probably by women, right? Women would have
Oh,
probably been,
yeah.
so that this would have been something that was, it would have originated in nature, not forged in, iron and structured and, you pointed out, used to hurt other people with, used to cause harm. This is something that I can reach out and hold. And so the imagery around that was just beautiful for me. As as you all know, because I popped up, I cut off all my hair. And I'd been thinking about, because this isn't the first time I've done this, and a few people would always ask, when I do this, is this my Brittany moment? Hell yeah, it's my Brittany moment. Go Brittany moments. Cutting off all of my hair is a sign of grief. I totally shaved in. I went to a barber. They carved beautiful patterns that I love into it, which I have to go and get redone actually. Um, when when women were claimed in the when women in the Old Testament were accused of adultery, their heads were shorn. When women were captured and taken by Israel and taken to be their property, their hair was shorn. Their identity, their casting off of this old part of their lives. Having long hair has spiritual significance for many. There's lots of things, to do with shaving of heads and monks and, religious structures. But we also see it used as a humiliation for women. We see it used as a punishment across the world. During the Troubles in Northern Ireland, this was something, it was called bobbing. It goes hand in hand actually with sexual assault quite often, that the thing that isn't spoken about is the assault, and but there is this sort of visual thing that's happened. And so there's actually fascinating. I'm thinking about writing a paper about the ancient Israel and hair rituals. But yeah, so for me, I absolutely. I my husband is dealing with a very tearful Ronan, because Harry Potter has some sad music in it, and it's just helping him feel a little bit emotional. He'll put it on when he needs a cry, and I think I could learn a lot from that. Anyway, so yes, shaving my head was a sign of grief, and an empowering one. Having this freedom and being able to sort of reject what womanhood that I've been handed, that I've been told my role is, being able to reject that and reframe what it means for me is something that's really significant.
Mm.
Sara, talk to me about, we were talking about, the space of you have a calling where you have a responsibility, and it was
Mm.
really tough, to for you to be issued a state calling that you felt that
Mm.
was really important that you accept, right? And being held in a space where, you ultimately, if you didn't really, really want to be there, you wouldn't. You choose
Absolutely.
to be here.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting,
Mhm.
both of our stories and where we both are. And I think
Right.
it's probably really important for people to understand that these two different positions can coexist with great love and great friendship, and can coexist with respect and understanding, because you've chosen to leave the church, you've chosen to join another faith community. I choose to hang out and associate with Community of Christ because I kind of love being around them, and I love their hymns, and I love their belonging, and I love their journey that they're on from equality to belonging, and that's one that's important to me, and I like that. But I also love a lot about my LDS faith and tradition and friends and people and community, and I love much about that. And I love the opportunity of being able to serve as a stake safeguarding specialist. I don't know how long that will be able to continue for. I don't know, but I love being able to be part of the journey as a calling that the stake are on in safeguarding. I appreciate the contact that's enabled me to have with people, the discussions it's enabled me to have, some of the conversations that have come out of that, some of the kind of seeing lights go on for people as they start to recognise and understand a little of the journey that is needed. And, I'm really grateful that I've got an opportunity to do that. And part of where I'm at the moment is almost a mirror image of where you're at. Whereas you've decided kind of a little bit of out with the old, in with the new, although that's almost a flippant way of something that is so powerful and emotional and spiritual to you. And I didn't mean it to be flippant, but you're kind of in that journey of moving and reorganizing and restructuring, reevaluating and
Yeah.
reprioritizing your life.
Yeah. Which is
And,
not,
and,
yeah, you weren't flippant at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And I'm there in exactly the same place about thinking, what do I want to hold on to? And I don't want to hold on to everything from my LDS faith, because there's some things I firmly, strongly reject, and to have no part of my choices, decisions, value base at all. There are some things that do. And so I'm kind of working out how all that's going to fit together over a longer term. And
Yes.
I think it's really good that we can sort of go on this parallel journey together, and we might land at different spaces from time to time, and then we come together in the same space, and then we land in a different space and we come together again. And it's kind of a good journey to be on together.
I feel like, before we pull in your garden analogy, it's so funny because it's just the moment I unmute is the moment Ronan will have a shout. But I it's actually very, very relevant to what we're experiencing. So I've left, and I want to instinctively reject everything, except I know that there are things that I want to keep. If I'm throwing things out, it will harm me if I'm sort of,
Mm.
I learned that I had worth through what was introduced to me in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah,
That's where I first learned it. What I would
yeah,
then learn is that worth was
yeah,
conditional. That worth came along with a lot of humiliation,
yeah,
but I learned that it was possible. And so I want to hold on to that, because if I throw out worthiness, I don't want to throw out everything that's equated with that. So that being an example. And I think at this time, what is needed. So Ronan, my son who has special needs, and he's in his mid-20s, and what he will experience is a dysregulation. So he has a type of brain damage and learning difficulties, and so he'll experience a dysregulation, a feeling of sadness. And what he'll do is he'll put on a Harry Potter movie, and he'll see a moment where Harry's sitting at a window, and Harry looks lonely, and some sad music is playing, and Ronan will feel that. Now, it was so difficult for years. Ronan struggled to feel any negative emotion, was really traumatic, and it would lead to very, very harmful behaviours. Now he'll cry and he'll weep and he'll shout. And what happens is, because he's calling for help, he's calling for support. So his dad is currently in supporting him as Ronan's expressing what it is he's feeling. And what he wants to say is, I miss Harry so much. And he'll say, I'm never going to see Harry again. Because you remember the films and they all grow up and then it all feels kind of over, and there's that emotional sort of journey of the hero's journey coming to an end. I'm never going to see Harry again. Now, he doesn't want to. What we could do is jump straight to, of course you will, because you can just press play. And of course you're going to. Ronan knows this. Ronan knows that he has absolute control in that situation. But what he needs is the morning time. What he needs is for his dad to say, me too. I miss Harry too.
Right.
It really hurts when he's gone. And then Ronan will tell us, Harry is the love of my life. For so many of us, Mormonism was the love of our life. It was the core of our life. It was the center of our life. It's everything that our family was defined upon. And even though this has been a long, slow journey, when it's not there anymore, just to have that moment of, I need to feel this or it's going to go somewhere unhealthy. Then what Ronan does is it moves into this, we are going to see him again though, because we're going to go to the cinema or we're going to watch this movie next, or, we have an outing planned or whatever it may be, but we can't start to begin the future until we've had this moment of accepting the grief of right now.
That is such a powerful statement, Jane. I just want us to pick up on that for a moment, that we can't start the journey of the future until we dealt with the grief of the present. Because that is powerful.
Talk to me about the garden.
About the garden. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, the garden story. The garden story.
I want to hear what happened.
This is something that I shared with you last night, wasn't it? When we were talking about, when I was trying to explain to you how I need to find space for the things that are really important and the things that really matter to me. I need to find space for them to be able to grow and flourish. And I don't feel there's any space in my life for them at the moment. And I shared this story of many years ago. I moved into a very old Victorian terraced house, which was kind of 150 odd years old, and so had a very old garden that had been gardened for years and years and years, with fantastic soil and huge things growing in it and one thing and another. And we moved in the winter when the garden was looking a bit barren and a bit dead and a bit forlorn, a bit lost, a bit hopeless. And I remember saying to my mother, who was a phenomenal gardener, she always had beautiful gardens and she did a really good job with them. And I said to her, I'm going to dig that flower board over and I'm going to put some fruit bushes there and I'm going to put some rhododendrons there and I'm going to do, I'm telling her what I'm doing. And she said, no, she said, stop. She said, don't do anything. She said, you don't know what's in that garden. She said, you don't know what is underneath that soil, and what looks dead, you don't know what's going to come back. She said, leave it. She said, just leave your garden alone. She said, and see what comes up. She said, just leave it. She said, and see what's there. She said, and by the time spring and summer has come, she said, you'll see what's flourishing, what's growing. And she said, and you'll see what the gaps are. But she said, you'll see what is there. So she said, just leave your garden alone for a few months and give the garden a chance to show you what is there before you start doing anything to it. And I've always applied that lesson periodically to my life.
Yeah.
That occasionally everything gets so busy and so full and so congested that it's very, very difficult for something new and positive and enlightening and fabulous to land and find space to grow. And so, a lot for me about this, what do I want to hold on to for my faith community? What do I want to decide serves no purpose for me and is harmful to me? How do I marry that together and decide where I want to stay, go, what I want to do over the longer term? How do I work that out? Because there's much that I love and cherish and have benefited from, and there's much that has been really problematic and painful and harmed. And it's how I pull that together. But the analogy for the gardening for me is, at the moment, there is no room for new growth. There's no room for anything to breathe or for anything to grow, because it is so full of everything under the sun. So the theory and the thinking for me is, if I can empty a lot of stuff out, then I can see what naturally lands. What will land in my life if I've got a week when I'm not doing anything except breathing and walking and catching up with family? What will actually land as the things that I start to value and prioritize and want more of? What will I find I don't want anymore? I don't go to church very often, I have to say that. I'm not very good at going to church. I sort of go kind of maybe once every 6 weeks or so, but I'm not very good at going.
I think that's been very good at going when
I,
you say,
well,
you know, that's good.
I secretly think it's quite amazing, actually, considering half of me
Right.
has to stay outside the chapel doors when I walk in. So I think it's actually pretty good, really. But when I but when I do go, and I forgot what I was going to say now, but I was going to say something about, like, but when I do go, I want it to be a time when I can find out what I want to keep from that, or what I want to let go of forever.
Mm. I think, you know, thinking about the garden analogy, because, yeah, waiting to see what's there, waiting to see what comes up is so powerful.
Yeah,
I think, you know, we're sort of experiencing, not that it's we're the only people in the world to ever experience things like this, right? People are transitioning in and out of their faith spaces, and we know it's really hard. It's just, it's different when it's me, because you know, I haven't had to deal with this before. But I think what I'm conscious is happening is I'm so busy looking at other people's gardens that seem really well adjusted, or that they know how to do it, or
yeah,
that it could be this way, or you know, or they don't need a garden. What do you need a garden for? It should,
yeah.
you know. Um, I think I'm listening to so many voices, or feeling like I should be doing so many things. We're not being productive
Yeah.
if we're waiting, right?
Right. And well, I've decided that from now on, certainly for a period of time, the only voices I'm going to listen to, I don't know if this sounds dreadfully arrogant or not. I don't know. I'm going to have to think about this. But I've decided the only voices I'm going to be listening to are the ones that I proactively ask for information. The
Ah,
ones that I actually approach and say, do you know what? I'd love to hear what you have to say on a particular principle, a value, an idea, something. And they're the voices I listen to.
I love that, and I think it's actually using. So we've spoke about this, you know, in many discussions also. But a few weeks ago, when we had Carla and Joelle, who were speaking from their
Yes.
experience in Community of Christ, and um, I said that word so fast. In Community of Christ. I'm just conscious that when I'm excited, the Scottish accent is so thick that the
And then, you know,
subtitles will
and
struggle.
I absolutely am loving the excitement that you're living through and the excitement that you're going through as you look towards baptism, as you
It's so
plan for this
exciting.
event. I'm
Well,
loving
I
the
have to say this.
excitement.
This might not sound. This baptism is actually feeling in many ways like an ordinary day. I think it's in the
It
same
went on the
way
day.
as, well,
The
it's
ride
because
won't
what I'm
stop.
looking forward to is as the experience of community, as the the act of rebellion, the act of choosing something with full consent, with knowing what's going to happen. So I know that I'm going to be standing in the middle, well, not in the middle, on the
Yeah,
edge.
please not the middle.
Well,
Please
it's not
not the
the middle.
middle.
Standing on
Send
the
your lifeboats in
in,
if you're in the middle.
I will be standing in the edge of Loch Lomond, bitterly cold, wonderfully cold, refreshing, with my women, with Sara, with some other very, very special women that I love. And we are going to get to have this experience. I'm going to experience it with my family. We are going to sing. We are going to spin fire. We are going to laugh and not have to feel like I'm having this switching on religion and we have to be super reverent. This is going to be earthy and real and not something that I feel like like the Mormonism of, are you prepared for your baptism? Do you really understand the covenants? I'm not going to make covenants. I'm going to experience
And
something that is connection.
and one thing that I love, I really love, is that the discussion, kind of in a nutshell, really, that you've had about baptism, has centered on your desire to follow Jesus and your desire
And
to
I
be
don't
part
get,
of a community that's
yeah,
seeking to follow Jesus. And that's from the community crisis perspective. There
right,
hasn't been an interview with set questions
right.
about have you ever done this in your life? Had do, which starts off with a what? And actually, to be honest with you, that should have been a red flag to me on the very day I had the baptismal interview. It should have been a red flag about, hang on a minute, this is my entry into a kind of faith community, and you're starting off with a whole lot of let's find out how bad you've been, or let's find out how good you are. Let's put you in a box of worthiness to see if we want you.
Mm-hmm.
And and one of the things that I absolutely love about for you is that you haven't that hasn't been a part of this experience.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that kind of
No, it
means
is.
anything
I
particular
feel
to you
like,
at this moment.
no, it does. And I feel like what's significant for me is that Jesus is the form or the sort of path, the spiritual text that it's following. It could, it doesn't for me have to be defined as that. I find spiritual significance in many, many ways, and almost like the faces, the numbers on a dice. Jesus is one of those faces. God is one of those faces. Equally, it's earth, it's goddesshood, it's something divine, it's the Greek pantheon of gods. It's nothing at all. It's complete. It's atheism. It's nihilism. This is the face that it looks like in the journey that I want to take, that is the journey of people who chose to do things for justice, for peace, to help people understand the divine, to support the marginalized. In doing that, and sort of you've been with me while I've been, on this journey. I am looking for, so not having the LDS structure, and I'd made this decision way before I
Mm,
left the church. This was away last year. This isn't like,
yeah,
let's religion hop here. This is not new.
absolutely.
But for like what, nearly a year, I've been looking for, okay, so where are the cues? Where is the permission? Where is the approval? Where are the questions? Who's going to structure this? And nobody does it. And so it leaves you feeling very disorientated as someone who comes from an LDS background. But Joelle, in this discussion, and she had, when she was closing out, she had used the word about, she was asking people to be intentional. And it's a word we hear so much, it becomes almost cliche. But as Joelle talked about intentionality, it was it kept coming back to me. When you talk about, you know, only the only voices you're going to listen to are ones that you are seeking. You're being intentional about how you're about what you're letting come into your your headspace. That word intentionality. That's why we're doing this podcast tonight, so that we can intentionally think about, well, what is it? What is this going to look like? We plan to be away till probably October, and we plan to be back. There is the possibility that we might not. We might just hang out in the wilderness so long that we we could see you in October. We could see you next year. We may
I have
see you
to
in the
say,
next week.
the wilderness is a good place to be. Once you
It
step
is.
outside the city walls
Yeah.
and you start hanging out in the wilderness,
Right.
it's a good place to be. The wilderness is a place where you'll see great beauty, growth, opportunity, and it's amazing what ragtag fellow travellers you'll find in the wilderness. But you just got to get yourself outside those city walls to be in that wilderness.
And so we're going to be podcasting. We will be doing group stuff with the Brit Vengers. We will be doing
Yeah,
panels.
yeah,
We've
we
got
will.
conferences to do. We may decide to pick up the microphones at some point, and because we just feel like having a late night chat with you all, and maybe something that we really want to discuss. So
Well,
we reserve
I
the
mean,
right.
Mormonism is a gift that keeps on giving, so
Oh,
something may
isn't it?
happen that will drive us to the microphones
And that's
tomorrow
the
night, to be honest.
right. And that because there will be. But the difference is we're choosing to do this with
Yeah.
intention, so that what we're not doing is getting sucked into every thing or event or whatever it is. I don't want to jump onto or take the emotional roller coaster of everything that is coming up. And
Let's just see
yeah,
what
so
let's just see what takes root and grows.
let's
When
see
there's a
what
little
takes
bit of
root.
space made, let's just sit back and do nothing, and let's just see what takes root and grows. Because generally, what takes root and what grows will be the things that are important to us,
Right, right.
and that's that.
And
Certainly.
that's the
I mean,
work,
I think I've got a lot of making up to do for my family over the next few months, because I think I've neglected them appallingly in the last year, maybe longer. And
yeah,
I'm not pleased about that at all. But they certainly haven't had anything like the amount of time and attention they should have had. So
right,
I need to do some catching up
yeah. And do you
and
know,
some
Sarah, that's
time.
exactly because that's what happens is
Yeah,
everything that comes up, there is such a sense of urgency that
yeah.
goes along with it. And why is that? Why even is that? What
Well,
what
I think some
causes
of the problem with the sense of urgency is partly it's because we take things seriously. Because the
right,
only people that find themselves ever questioning or struggling are people that take things very seriously. Other than that,
right.
you just don't, because you just get on with it and go with the flow.
Hmm.
And I think because we take things seriously, when we see something that's needed or something that's happening, it's like we need to do something. We need to say something. We need to speak up. We need to support. We need to put our money where our mouth is. And so sometimes we take things on without necessarily sitting back for a little while and thinking, is this for us, or is this one that we can pass us by because this isn't for us?
Yeah,
And I think sometimes it's about the desire to be able to talk about things that people aren't talking about and keep saying they want to talk about.
if there is marginalization, especially if there are voices that need amplified, if there are people who are unsafe, especially, we have a tendency to want to urgently, right, we need to amplify this because it's important right now. And
You know, there was
it still will be.
yeah, there was a book that I remember telling you about, Jane, that I read a while ago. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's on Amazon. It's called Autobiography.
Excellent. I'm going to read
Autobiography.
this. Yes. Aha.
It needs to be on everyone's to-do read list. It's a fantastic, fabulous story written. It's about being gay in Utah. And it's a novel. It is a novel, and it's written as a novel, but it brings out such powerful understanding and insights and influences. And there's a line in there that I think I will never forget, when one person writes a letter to one boy, writes a letter, they're sort of older teenage boys, and one writes a letter to the boy that they're kind of in love with each other, but church is a big issue. It's like, but what do we do because of church? It's a big issue for them. And the one writes a letter and he said, you have so much room in your heart for your church, but does your church have room for you? And I think some of those thoughts are kind of thoughts that need to be around at this time as well. There's a lot of room in our heart for a lot of things, but is there necessarily room for us in all of those things?
Yes.
And church is a big one. Is the room for us there?
Well, because it's
And
rooted in church.
for you as well, because you may no longer be an official member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but you are a lifelong heart and soul member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day
I'm
Saints,
still
even if
Mormon.
your name's no longer on a record somewhere.
Right.
And you are still working in a safeguarding space. And as you wrote a very eloquent, powerful email to the church lawyers and leadership of the church to say you will still be working in this safeguarding space, and you will still be supporting the church's journey, and you will still be working to ensure justice, and which was very graciously received, and you got a really positive response back, which was really good to hear. But and I've forgotten where I was going with that now. Well, completely forgotten.
Well, you get your bearings, because actually that's something that I just want to give a nod to. That, yeah, we did worry, wonder, feel a bit anxious about, will this make a difference? We have this positive relationship of trust. And other Mormons, other Latter-day Saints, it did make a difference, which shocked the hell out of me. I wasn't prepared for that. But for the hard time we've given the church lawyer, for all we have, talked about how incredibly gorgeous he is, and his sheer beauty, and we sort of tease about things like that. He's a really, he means it. And I think I can say that confidently. We've worked with him long enough that he means it. His support, what he said, and Sarah, you pointed out that when I read his response to you, the supportive, kind email that he had sent, you had said, oh, if only, what would it be like just now if you had had that kind of response from your bishop or stake president? You might not have left.
Absolutely. This guy could reach out to you and say, I'm so sorry you're going, and I'm so, it's good that you're going to stay involved, that you're going to be working in this space, and I'm sorry, and if there's anything I can do, please let me know. It was
He's lovely. A lawyer. We give these guys ulcers.
Oh, we do.
Seriously.
We do.
And
but never mind. They cope with us well. But I
think that really clear how appreciated that was, that they did that.
Yeah, and I think I went off on a bit of a tangent about that. I'm still not 100% sure why, but I think it was that sense that you may have left the church, but you haven't left the church behind completely. You're still actively involved in a lot of things that are going on at church, and some people, some areas, some quarters of the church are making room for you still. Others aren't, and it's their loss, the ones that aren't making room for you. And it shows the kind of grace and the Christ-like attributes of those that are making room for you still. And I think testing out and really being confident that there is room for us in the church is a really important it's really important, it matters. Because there might be room in our heart for the church, but if there isn't room for us in the church, then that needs some thinking. But at the
So where
moment,
is your heart
where's my
right now?
heart?
What's going on with your heart right now?
I think my heart is possibly slightly softer towards the church in some ways than it has been for a few years. But I think that goes hand in hand with me feeling more confident to reject teachings and values that I no longer feel are credible and I no longer feel are what Christ wants. There just seem to be a few ideas a few dodgy men have had. And I'm like, seriously, that doesn't work for my life. So, no, that doesn't apply to me. And I will not be living that principle. And I think being able to take that position actually makes me much more able to feel that I can stay. Now that might not always be a position that I would be able to hold. Because leadership roulette being what leadership roulette is in the church, that may be a position that I can't always hold. And there may have to be decisions made about that. But right now, I don't have to pretend or fake it because here I am. This is me. I have other places I can be if you don't want me to be here. I have other places I can get my spiritual needs met if you don't think that you should be meeting them or part of that journey with me. But I feel I've got something that I can contribute and offer, and you've got something that you can give to me. Hi, Ronan. It's good to see you come join us.
So,
Hello.
for the very first time, our podcast audience, this is Ronan Christie, and Ronan is an ex-Mormon. And Ronan really appreciated having a language for that. And he feels a bit sad about Harry Potter sometimes.
Mm.
But what is very exciting is that we're going to go and see Harry Potter tomorrow because we're going to see him again.
Wow.
And you did, for our audience's benefit, all of your fans, Ronan, would love to know about this. Sara was at the zoo and visited all of your favourite characters.
I saw the
Snowy
Gruffalo.
and the Gruffalo as well.
And actually, my grandchildren told me it was the real Gruffalo, so that was really good.
Well, I saw the
It was
photographic evidence. This
it,
was the real
it
Gruffalo.
was the real Gruffalo.
So
I
The
saw
hands and paws are the same.
his hands and paws are the exact same as
yeah,
The Gruffalo.
the
that's
Gruffalo
right.
paws.
That's right. And he's even got the poisonous wart on the end of his nose, terrible teeth and terrible tusks and turned out toes.
That's right.
Yes,
Right there.
that's right. Yeah, poisonous wart on the
So
end of his nose.
now I love the fact that we can consciously know what's most important and that spending time being one of Ronan's fans, your mum and your super fan, is the most important thing that I can be
Well,
focusing on right now.
I think that's true, Jane. I think Ronan is the most important thing you can be focused on ever because you're Ronan's cheerleader, which is fabulous. And Ronan, just so everybody listening to our podcast knows, Ronan is my birthday twin.
That's right.
We share a birthday and we get to blow candles out on our birthday cake together and sing happy birthday to each other every year.
So we are going to sign off for tonight. You know, we're expecting to be back in October, but you'll see us
You never
on
know.
the, you know,
You never
we will
know.
be in the blogger knackle before that. We will be doing some kind of, I'm sure,
And
panel discussions with the gang and things.
we will pick up. I guarantee that if you send an email to us with the word abuse or safeguarding in the heading, we will pick it up really quickly. Other
Absolutely.
emails, other information, we will pick up. I'm going to spend less and less time on social media. So if I don't pick things up and you seem to think I should know something and I don't know it, I apologise in advance. So just drop me a message, give me a
Drop
call.
us a message. And Ronan, since this is a big, long summer holiday break, do you have a message that you would like to share with all your fans? The hoot of a snowy owl, is that your message?
Yeah.
Yep, ready? Shall we do it again? 1, 2, 3. Have a wonderful, wonderful time, and we bless all of your journeys. Thanks for being with us.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.